These are some of our earlier records.
The fight is on to save the National Archives at Sandpoint before it's moved out of state.
This affects not just tribes, this affects every citizen in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Alaska.
It can work for anyone, really.
As America ages, a new effort is keeping seniors in their homes longer.
This is going to be our forever home, and that's how we have approached our lives here.
In this class, the creativity flows and glows. A popular workshop offers a light lesson in neon art.
I love it.
These stories and more next on CityStream. Hi, I'm Tatevik Aprikyan, and welcome to CityStream from the beautifully renovated lobby here at 2 Union Square. This building may be 30 years old, but the lobby makeover has transformed the space into a fresh and appealing place to collaborate, recharge, and relax. From its wave ceiling to the stunning rock wall to the fireplace lobby, the change is dramatic. How it was designed and why, just ahead. But first, it came as a shock in January when we learned the federal government had decided to shut down the National Archives in Seattle's Sandpoint neighborhood. Native Americans, more than any other group, depend on that facility and its archival treasures. Felix Bonnell was the first to report this story and went to Sandpoint to find out more.
There's an odd feeling in the air here. And it's not from the distinctive aroma of the millions of old documents stored in the building since the early 1960s. What's going on is that historians and genealogists who've been coming here for years, and people who have never visited before, have heard the news that the federal government wants to shut it down and move everything inside to California.
These are some of our earlier records. These are from the General Land Office, but they show the various Indian agencies and the allotments. This particular one is for the Puyallup and Muckleshoot Indian reservations. But I love these old maps because they did so much more than just draw lines.
Sue Karen is director of the federal facility, home to documents, photos, and one-of-a-kind maps, like this one from 1856, signed by the first governor of Washington Territory.
These are the originals, Isaac Stevens' signature on it. This is the record that everything's based on.
The looming closure and sale of the building stem from 2016 legislation intended to identify underutilized federal property for fast-track disposal. But elected officials in the 4 states the facility serves, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Alaska, say there should have been a public process. Patty Murray, Maria Cantwell, and other senators have asked the White House to reverse the decision. There's one group who depends on the facility and what's inside more than any other: Native Americans. Their lives were radically disrupted by the arrival of Europeans in the 19th century. The archives in Seattle constitute some of the earliest written records of indigenous culture in what's now Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Alaska. This is, in a way, the DNA for Native life, good and bad, in what became the United States.
This is the Register of Indian Families from the Puyallup Consolidated Agency. This is from 1902. And here you have just a register of the Indian families. You have, in some cases, the Indian name. People using these or looking at these registers, they're using them to document that the Bureau of Indian Affairs saw them as being a Puyallup Indian at this time.
In the months they were considering closure of the Seattle facility, the federal government didn't consult with any of the 272 tribes in the 4 states.
You know, I think they dropped the ball. You know, there's such a huge impact of this decision without consulting those who are affected. You know, this affects not just tribes, this affects every citizen in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Alaska. You know, all these folks have their history stored here.
In February, National Archives officials from Washington, D.C. visited Seattle. They invited a small group of tribes to Sandpoint to discuss the closure and the plan to move materials to California. But no one from the national office would talk to us on camera about the closure, or about the lack of public process, or talking to tribes like this before the decision was made.
Well, I'm glad you guys are here.
Demonstrators outside made their feelings very clear.
My ancestors are in here. Please
Come away from me.
When the meeting was over, some tribal representatives were skeptical about promises made by the D.C. officials.
I hate to say it, but it's, 165 years later after the treaty signing, things were promised by the federal government, and like the hospital and a school, and it took many years. So it is my feeling that it'll be the same process again.
Archival documents, the actual original paper, not just digital copies, means something more to Brandon Raynon.
And be able to see, capture in that document the feelings that our ancestors must have felt. You're not going to get that when you're looking at a digital copy. You're not going to get that when you're looking at a computer screen.
And most of what's preserved in Seattle has not been digitized, including burial records for the old Cushman Indian School in Pierce County.
I have a voicemail that came in today from somebody that's a Tlingit, and they're wanting to get information on who's buried here from Cushman. And that information is up at Sandpoint. Alaska doesn't have access to those records anymore because all of those records were moved down here. So we act as a resource. They reach out to us and we're able to give them that information so that they know where their ancestors are.
And there's so much more irreplaceable tribal material in Seattle's vast and diverse holdings.
These are also some of our older documents. This is from the Tulalip Indian Reservation. And as you can see, they are, in some cases, very faded.
Irrigation maps from the Yakima Reservation in eastern Washington, a written tribal history from Umatilla, Oregon, and even photos of the baseball team at Metlakatla, Alaska. What happens if all this goes to California?
It might be hard for non-natives to understand, but there's a spirit that comes with their words in paper, their artifacts. That are still attached, that we can still feel, that we still understand, that we can have that connection. And you move that stuff away, we lose that ability to feel that connection.
Washington Attorney General Bob Ferguson and other officials are exploring ways to keep the facility open. Amber Taylor is optimistic some kind of solution will be found.
I think there's a lot of good people on our side. I think that there's a lot of people that are willing to stand with us, and we've been known to take action. So, like I said, we persevere. So, I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful.
It's unclear what comes next for the National Archives in Seattle. It may take as long as 4 years to shut it down. If Attorney General Bob Ferguson sues the federal government, that timeline and the move itself might look very different.
Next on CityStream, a new design process opens the door to accessibility, allowing people to age in place at home. We return to the lobby of 2 Union Square and perhaps its most eye-catching feature, the Great Wall. It's constructed entirely of travertine. That's the same long-lasting marble used to build the Colosseum in Rome. The stone was quarried in Tivoli, Italy, then carved into 1,400 unique shapes using computer-controlled equipment. All the pieces were then sent to Seattle and the wall was constructed on site.
A different design process is helping senior citizens and those with disabilities. And with the rising cost of housing, it's no wonder more people are choosing to stay in their homes longer. Advocates call it aging in place. And as Brian Callanan explains, making small changes in your home could bring more benefits than you think.
If you get the plums out.
I will get the plums out.
Leslie Haynes and Randy Earl work well together in the kitchen.
No, you go ahead.
Okay.
This couple is able to do that because their kitchen and the rest of their Pioneer Square home works for them. Randy has a genetic defect that affects his spinal cord, known as AMN.
It's called adrenomyeloneuropathy.
Can you spell that, please?
I know, it's A-A-D-R-E. Ah, there you go.
He's able to smile about dealing with a disability that keeps him in a wheelchair. But his search 13 years ago with Leslie for an accessible home to live in was no joke.
And so I just got mad and I said, you know, we're gonna create our own place.
They've done just that through the use of universal design principles in a 900+ square foot home set up not just for Randy, but for any person, young or old, with mobility issues.
And can work for anyone, really, not just, you know, mums and strollers, just for everyone. So that was really important for us.
A housing and urban development study shows less than 1% of homes in the U.S. are wheelchair accessible. A fact Randy says speaks to our country's focus on youth.
As a culture, you know, we don't value older people as much, and this idea of getting, you know, older and needing adaptations, it's hard for people.
Universal design is not a widely known term.
That's Carly Hokie of C. Hokie Design, who's well aware that our region will soon have a population where 1 out of 4 people is age 60 or older.
We need a clear width space of 36 inches.
Carly helps remodel homes you can live in longer, what advocates call aging in place.
How do you get into the shower?
From simple changes to improve bathroom access, to making kitchen utilities easier to reach. Carly says improving your home's accessibility is a smart and relatively inexpensive investment in a fast-growing real estate market.
So that's why it's important. It's because people want choice, so they're starting to demand and ask for ways, how do I stay at home longer and live functionally and safely?
Marketplace Sotheby's realtor Barry Long, in a wheelchair since 1991 after a motorcycle crash, has pushed the conversation about accessible homes even further.
It's a matter of, if it's got accessibility features in the home, can you get to them?
Barry, with John L. Scott realtor Tom Minty and the Northwest Multiple Listing Service, put Washington on the map as the first state to display accessibility features on its home listings.
You can search by any of these or all of these, and you can search.
10 different buttons now allow you to see how accessible a home's entry is, or its kitchen, or bathroom, for example.
This really does add value to a home.
Creating these kinds of listings is one of many priorities for the Seattle-King County Advisory Council on Aging and Disability Services. And Barry says more breakthroughs are to come.
What we're doing with this technology is now allowing people to truly go find homes that are accessible or adaptable, that then they can, you know, easily make accessible for them to stay in as long as possible.
That's the goal with this project at Randy and Leslie's place, where contractor Thomas Jacobson is remodeling the bathroom. New fixtures here have added 6 inches of space Randy needs as his overall mobility continues to deteriorate.
The fulfillment that I got out of it was probably greater than the majority of the projects that we do, because it required me to get in and really understand what it was that somebody needed.
And as architect Carol Sundstrom puts it, universal design is something we all need.
It's so effortless that you don't even realize when a space is universally designed, because it just works better for everyone.
And that's if we're aging in place, dealing with accessibility, or just creating a home that people with mobility issues would feel comfortable visiting.
All these things we need to think about so that it's not just one formula for living.
This just lets me do multiple things.
Randy and Leslie hope more people catch on to the need for more accessible homes. And they're grateful their latest renovation is finally done.
Just trying to make it work for a lot of different people.
And there's your keys. This is going to be our forever home. This is going to be our forever neighborhood. And that's how we have approached our lives here. Okay.
Leslie and Randy spent about $17,000 remodeling their bathroom, and they say it's made life a lot easier for them. If you'd like more information on home repair programs to help age in place, we've got a lot of great resources for you. The Northwest Access Fund has a list of funding sources for home modifications you may qualify for. You can find out more at nwaccessfund.org. And Sound Generations of King County has a home maintenance program for anyone who qualifies as low income. Go to soundgenerations.org for more information. We'll be right back. Welcome back to CityStream from the stunning lobby of 2 Union Square. I'm joined here by Craig Wrench, the CEO of Washington Holdings, who manages this building. Thank you for being here. Tell me a little bit about the redesign process after 30 years and why now?
Yeah, I think it was just time. We wanted to maintain Union Square as a preeminent location in the city for our very demanding tenants, and so was approaching the 30th anniversary of the opening of the building, time to refresh it.
There's a lot of tenants, a lot of well-known businesses in our community that are here into Union Square. There's a lot of spaces here for people who work here to come down and kind of escape that office. Talk to me a little bit about some of the specifics of the redesign.
Yeah, the design team really went back to the original scheme of Northwest regionalism, and they wanted to tell the story forward for the next 30 years. I agree with you. I think we have the best tenants in the city, and we wanted them to be wowed by this because we were taking apart a pretty nice lobby when we did this. We made some effort to conceal what we were doing from them. We built complicated tunnels, and so that when we did take all the walls down, it would be a big reveal, and we got the reaction that we wanted.
It is a pretty big reveal. I mean, there's some absolutely stunning elements here in the lobby.
This is considered a Northwest regionalist architecture style. The design team wanted to replicate some of the physical things that are found in the Northwest. So the Great Wall is sort of a nod to maybe a river-carved gorge with, sedimentary walls that you might find in central Washington. The waveform ceiling is a very organic form that looks like maybe ripples of waves on water. The other thing that's found in the Northwest economy is innovation, creativity, the use of technology, and these were all designed using computational tools. We tested them out using virtual reality. It was very much in that sense a nod to the Northwest.
And how many pieces are a part of this wall?
I think that the main part of the wall is about 1,400 pieces, and the fractal is another 470-ish. The waveform ceiling, I think, is 2,833 pieces that are assembled together. So yeah.
A lot coming together to make one lobby. Talk to me just a little bit too about all the other pieces within this redesign. You redid the retail space. There's a fireplace area for people to go and have meetings or grab a cup of coffee. What else can people find?
Well, I don't know if you've been in our elevators. We have some of the fastest elevators on the West Coast, but we hired Spike Mafford, who's a local photographer who over the course of 2 years went and photographed tree canopies that in forests around the Northwest, and then we blew them up to 8 feet tall, and so those wrap the back wall of each of the elevators. You can get in one elevator one day and you're in a forest on the Olympic coast, and then for lunch you're somewhere in the Cascades. We have musicians that come in from time to time. The living rooms, we have the Cortina Cafe. It was a full makeover.
And we obviously can't talk about the transformation without mentioning the designers themselves and world-renowned NBBJ.
Definitely need to give a shout out to Bill Bain, who was part of the original design team, really the father of the design of 2 Union. He assisted us with the redesign, thanks to NBBJ.
And you guys have already won one prestigious award, and you're up for a couple others for this?
Yeah, they won the national, actually it's an international prize from Interiors Magazine for the best lobby renovation in America, or in the world, I guess. So that Sarah Steen went back to New York and picked that up in December.
Well, congratulations with that, and congratulations with the redesign.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
We'll be right back. You're probably familiar with the signs hanging above businesses like Cupcake Royale, Mighty O Donuts, and the W Hotel. All were designed by Western Neon, which has been lighting up the Northwest for 30 years. Now the company's work is inspiring a new wave of artists. If fire, glass, and gases like neon and argon are your thing, you'll want to check out the Western Neon School of Art.
When you are around something that we call neon, it doesn't feel like anything else. You only ever see people smile.
Nice. Yeah, not bad.
When they're around the medium. It's the electricity, I think it's tactile, it's the feeling that you can actually touch light because you're seeing it through glass.
I love it.
Jay and Michael Blazek started Western Neon as Seattle's first illuminated art gallery in 1985. It was really built on the DNA of their father, Dean, who started a neon school in Wisconsin in the late 80s. The owner of the business now is Andre Lucero, and we got together after working 20 years on public art projects and other different areas of interest in the summer of 17 with Kelsey Fernkoff, started the Western Neon School of Art as a way to give back to the community and to continue to explore the medium. We're really fortunate to have the business as the backbone and supporter of the school because we've had so much rich history in Seattle in creating iconic pieces in the landscape. We started in January of 2018 with our first introductory class, Introduction to Light, Space, and Interactive Technologies with 8 students. From there, it's grown to having quarterly classes, so we do fall, winter, and spring. And we have 2 introduction classes and now offer an intermediate class.
You heat up only this much glass?
I'd heat right there.
Oh, just right there?
Yeah.
Oh,
maybe a little
crazy.
more, you know.
So you heat this way. See, I was thinking something different. Okay, cool.
Yeah. You're gonna have to come back even farther because that inside's staying a little cool. You know what I mean?
And at this point in time, we have almost 450 people on our waiting list. And when we post our classes, it can be 8 hours or less that all those classes for almost all the quarters are gone. These tubes, although it is a very difficult process to bend one and make one and put the electrodes on and make the pump and the gas stays in there, don't treat it as precious. So the beginner's class is really focused on history of the medium and then understanding just what it is. The chalk's on there because it makes it slide over the glass really well. You want that on the inside. Learning basic bends like doing a double back, doing a 90 degree. The basic techniques it takes to construct something.
So this is a blow hose. This part goes in your mouth, and this part goes at the other end of the tube, and you blow into it when the glass gets hot enough that it's starting to close in on itself. That way we blow into the tube and it keeps the diameter of the glass thick enough and keeps the integrity of the glass the same.
Ideally, you would kind of point this one straight up in the air. And as you're doing it, bring them both up like that so that you would be pointing it down.
Here's how it works. There are 5 elements that illuminate that we work with in what we call neon, which is kind of a misnomer because there are 5 elements. There's helium, neon, argon, krypton, and xenon. The most common ones we work with are neon and argon. And when we work with argon, we mix it with mercury, which gives it a very beautiful, bright white-blue color.
When you make a mercury tube, you seal it off like this, you burn it in for a little while and make sure the color is looking good and that it doesn't have air in it, and then you drop the mercury in. So I'm gonna drop that in. Yeah. And that's the difference between like no mercury and mercury in an argon tube.
We just have them work with the neon and with the argon and the clear glass, just to keep it really simple, efficient, and minimal. Then for our intermediate class, they had the ability to add mercury to the argon to give a different flavor. It also allows them to work in colored glass, and that's the big step up in that class. Then we really encourage them to focus on a focused project.
It'll be filled with sand eventually, and then they'll be secure.
In the beginning class, I did the house letters for my house, and I wasn't happy with my tube, so I redid the tube.
When you're in a space and you turn on something that's clear glass with this space gas inside of it that electrifies, all it does is do something very simple. It changes the room. All right. Instantaneously, it gives you a feeling, and nothing else can do that. It's beautiful.
That's awesome.
It's an art form that just should never be forgotten. It is beautiful. It's perfect.
If you'd like to sign up, this is the website to check out, wnsaseattle.org/programs. The workshops fill up fast, so the school suggests you join its mailing list to be the first to hear about upcoming classes. We'll be right back. Well, that wraps up this week's episode of CityStream from the lobby here at 2 Union Square. If you'd like to learn more about all our great shows, just visit seattlechannel.org and click on Feature Shows. I'm Tatevik Aprikyan. Thank you for watching.